We're 133 square miles, and it's normally been paradise. But even paradise is changing. For the first time, living in my house for the last 8 years, I've had to buy an air conditioning to basically help in the daytime. It's just too hot. Last year, 11 months ago, we had one of a really horrific drought, something that you don't see. We almost ran out of water on the island and would have had to get boats to bring in water. That's to tell you how bad it was.
Hello everybody, I'm Paul Beckwith with the Climate Emergency Forum, and I have the pleasure of having Johann Hoschtialek with me at the moment. Johann is based in Grenada at the moment, so it's going to be very interesting to find out, to learn more about Grenada and how climate change is impacting Grenada. I mean, no place in the world is immune from the effects of climate change, so it's very interesting to find out about other countries and how they're being impacted and how they're dealing with it. So I'll pass it right over to Johann, and why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're planning on doing and what you're doing at COP29 in Baku, Azerbaijan.
Okay, well, good afternoon, folks. I am one of the founders of the 195 and 365 Global Youth Initiative. This is an initiative to bring youth representatives / activists from every single country of the world to go around to 195 countries of the world within 1 year, 365 days. For the most part, in a convoy of buses, i.e. to 146 countries by buses, the Caribbean in a flotilla of yachts, and 33 countries by plane. Yeah. To address climate change and how can we work to better with the SDGs. And for that reason, it is basically when we have the buses to go, each one wrapped in a different SDG, to go into from country to country, whereby the buses would be going in different directions. One would see the bleaching of the reefs, another one deforestation, another one meeting with indigenous tribes, another one going to schools, etc. But in the evening, joining the main convoy, which is made up of trucks with trailers, one which would be an innovation center, another one with giant television screens, food trucks, etc. But a mobile stage also being pulled by an electric truck so that we could do sort of mini COPs in every country. And all of this for three things: awareness, education, and mobilization of youth around the world. In other words, identifying what's the problems, how can we fix it, and getting together with youth all around the world to say, let's fix it. In other words, working with NGOs and civil society, universities all around the world to bring out the youth together to say, come guys, let's all get together, give them a sense of hope, empowerment, and say, together we can change the planet. So that's us in a nutshell.
So maybe can you tell us a few more specifics, like when? I mean, this is in the future at some point. It's not ongoing at the moment, or in the future. And are you getting support from the government to do this, or are you raising funds through donations? Like how are you planning on getting the funds to achieve these goals, and when are you hoping to start?
Well, first and foremost, I'm very happy to say the government of Grenada has endorsed this initiative. We have been busy, and this is why for us, COP was fantastic. We've been, before this, meeting with ministers and governments throughout the region. I've spoken with the Secretary General of CARICOM. I've even spoken with the Secretary General this time around again. I was at Sharm el-Sheikh from the Commonwealth, and she loves the idea. I've met with numerous ministers of governments and high delegates from many different organizations and multilateral organizations. Actually, I just had a very cool meeting with UNIDO and the different UN organizations to basically say, come, let's all work together to make this happen. As it pertains to financing for this, everybody that we've spoken to has understood that this is very easily financeable. Yeah, we actually have our team that is engaging right now with corporations for the sponsorship / partnerships for this. We do hope that in the beginning of the second quarter that we could kick off with this event and engaging all of these parties to say, come, let's get on board, let's change the world together.
And I assume that you have sort of a core group of people who will go to most of these countries, and then you'll pick up local people sort of along the way, maybe to join in the youth, if they might join or at least follow, and post to social media and share it far and wide. So this is fascinating. Now, probably a lot of our viewers, aren't too familiar with Grenada. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about Grenada, how it's being impacted by climate change, extreme weather events, cyclones, heat waves, all that fun stuff.
Sure. Well, just to put it in perspective, Grenada is about the size of Atlanta, or a little bit bigger than, or smaller than Greater Toronto. We're 133 square miles. And it's normally been paradise, honestly. I chose as a father to bring up my kids there because we still have the old-time type of values of it takes a village to raise a child, etc. And really paradise. But even paradise is changing. For the first time, I'm living in my house for the last 8 years. I've had to buy an air conditioning to basically help in the daytime. It's just too hot. Last year, 11 months ago, we had one of a really horrific drought, something that you don't see. We almost ran out of water on the island and would have had to get boats to bring in water. That's to tell you how bad it was. And 6 months ago, we had an unnatural disaster happen, i.e. we had Hurricane Beryl. Some of you all may have heard of it. A Category 4 hurricane that hit us, that broke so many records and decimated two of our Tri-Island state. And now, just last week, we had torrential rain, something we don't see, that was so bad that, kids were stuck in school for 5 hours standing on top of their desks. And if you thought that was bad, just again last night, we had another set of flooding and torrential rains. Yeah, climate action is definitely affecting us. It's bad.
Has there been a full recovery from Beryl, or is it still, because these sort of things, when things are cumulative, you get hit by one thing and then another thing and then another thing. It's very hard to recover. So is the government taking some steps to try to make the island more resilient, I guess?
Absolutely. And this is something that not only Grenada, but I could also say the Caribbean and other SIDS said, the bigger governments from the first world countries could really learn a thing or two from us about resilience. One, there's a lot more plans being put into place because the hurricanes are getting stronger. So everything from moving the electricity lines underwater to see how we could sort of buffer up our water supply and all of these different things. As it pertains to bounce back, I have to say Caraco's done a pretty decent job of bouncing back, even though the financial cost, it's horrific. And I'll add a key point here that very few people talk about. Everybody talks about the buildings and the people, but the land decimation that has happened. The trees, when you see that all the trees have been totally broken in half, that part, there's only so much we can do in replanting. But that's a big worry because the small islands of Caraco and Petit Martinique, they don't have rivers. So when the dry season hits, we have to see how that's going to be affecting us.
Yes, thank you. So maybe let us also know a little bit about the marine environment around Grenada, like coral reefs. Are there any kelp beds? Probably not. The water's too warm. And also a little bit about the infrastructure. So how are you generating your electricity on the island? Do you actually have sources of fresh water underground, or if you're based on limestone, probably not, like some of the Caribbean islands. So maybe tell us a little bit about that, and is renewable energy becoming a thing there? Or do people get around the island with electric scooters and vehicles, or is it gas still? So just some basic things like that.
Okay. Firstly, just to know, we have Tri-Island State, Carriacou and Petit Martinique. We're very mountainous, or hilly, we should say, not mountains like your mountains. But Grenada is a tropical paradise. It's a rainforest island. We have a lot of rainfall normally, even though the rainfall is constantly decreasing year in, year out. As it pertains to our reefing system here, we do have a lot of problems now happening with the bleaching of the reefs and the potential loss we will have for the fishing industry. As it pertains, sadly, to our renewables and stuff like that, we still have, and I say this as an activist, still a low penetration of renewables in the island, not many electric vehicles, etc. But I want to bring up a key point here. You see, for small island states, it is a lot harder. Well, actually, technically, it could be a lot easier. But to get the right mixture of solar panels or solar, wind, and I have to thankfully say they just signed a MOU here with a wave generating company that's about to put wave generation into the mix as a trial state in Grenada. With us being a volcanic island, they are now doing probes for geothermal on the island, even though that is, if it was just left to us, it would be prohibitively expensive for an island. But even though the mix right now is 90% or 95% from diesel, it is our desire to push to become, as an example to other islands, of an island going to net zero. That is the direction and the push that our initiative, and thankfully the collaboration with government that we have to get Grenada to show the world, to say, look, even though we're small, we are looking to become a resilient country, a net zero country. And there's a key part that you haven't mentioned here, the circular economy. You see, it's not just only about climate change, it's addressing the waste and all of that. And these type of issues we are also looking at to make sure that Grenada could be a shining light as an example to the world.
Yes, and I found that just before this interview, I found that the Wikipedia page on Grenada is actually, it looks excellent to me. I mean, lots of details. So one thing I have to ask you is, I just discovered, if Wikipedia is correct, that Grenada supplies about 40% of the world's nutmeg. So is the nutmeg, how is that being affected by the droughts and the torrential rains and hurricanes? Was there damage from the hurricanes to the crop?
We are called the Isle of Spice from the Caribbean. The nutmeg is also in our flag and in a lot of different things that we have. Even our logo is with the nutmeg. Unfortunately, I have to say, Hurricane Beryl was very devastating, and we lost a lot of the nutmeg crop. And it takes about 7 years for it to regrow. So even as a country and from an agricultural perspective, we do see these challenges as how do you protect, how do you buffer your system so that you're quick to recover from these things. So from an agricultural perspective, less the droughts and less the heat waves or the rains, because most of the nutmegs tend to grow high in the mountains, whereas being a rainforest country, we don't have that problem up there. But the crop itself, because of the winds, there's not much you can do to protect it once it's broken.
Yeah, and I was interested because nutmeg, it's not natural to Grenada. It was brought to Grenada in 1843 by a British merchant ship going to England from the East Indies, and it had some trees on board and left them behind, and the climate and conditions, soils, everything were perfect for the establishment of that industry. So yeah, it's I like to say that we live in the climate casino, and there's a lot of randomness as to whether you'll be individually affected or how severely your country will be affected. But I think people need to realize that no place is safe. I'm thinking of hurricanes, the Hurricane Helene, which went through the Appalachians, and there's a town up there that's a climate haven. People actually moved there to be at higher altitude, lower temperatures. They didn't expect anything would happen there from climate, and of course the torrential rains caused the rivers to fill and washed out great parts of the town. So I So let's circle back to future plans, and the traction that you hope to get from your project to go and interact with people around the world, because I think it's very important, because human interaction is really significant to people. You can go on 10 Zoom calls and you think you know people that are on the other side, but until you actually meet people in person and talk face to face, you're missing something in our digital world. And I think so going around physically to all of these countries, conveying experiences that you learn in one country to another country, and transferring knowledge on how to become more resilient, I think that's could be a very useful part of your project.
Absolutely. But and I'd like to add a point here. It's the human touch. That feeling that we're connected, that is a key part of what this is. And, I want to circle back to a comment you made much earlier. And I'll say there's something I didn't mention. Even though we have not started it as yet, this is already becoming like a movement. It's like Woodstock on steroids. We have had so many youth organizations in Africa and in Asia who've already told us, they haven't even asked us because we've been liaising with us, that they're saving money together to actually pay for buses so they could join the convoy, like 3 countries before to 3 countries after, because that feeling of togetherness, that feeling of empowerment, that look, the youth can do this. All it is that for our generation is to pass the baton, to give them the tools necessary, that together we can change the planet. We can make the world a better place. Yeah? So absolutely, we're on board with it.
Well, if you need a traveling musician with your group, I happen to know this guy, Alex Carlin, he has his guitar here at the COP. He brings his guitar and he plays all over, rewriting Beatles songs with climate messages and so on. And he'd be perfect. We just bumped into him before coming here to talk, so I'll convey this information and maybe put you guys in touch. And yeah, he's very good. He traveled all around Russia, performing for 7 years, something like 100 to 200 concerts per year. There's many different ways of getting the climate message out, and I think your ideas could have a very high chance of success. So I wish you well with them. So thank you. Do you have any sort of closing words that you might want to let us know about?
Yes. And this is a message then, not only to the youth, but to the parents. And I always say to people, I am just a father of 3 girls that wants a better world for them. End of story. And if you're a parent, you will understand the feeling of doing whatever it takes to make the world a better place for your kids. And for the kids or the young generation out there, I want you all to know this. It's not too late. Together, anything is possible. All we have to do is get together and just make it happen. Thank you.
And I'm a father of 3 boys, and I feel exactly the same way. How old are your girls?
My oldest is 19, 17, and turning 14 next month.
So add a couple of years to each of those, and that's my 3 boys. So thank you very much, everybody who's watching this episode of Climate Emergency Forum that we're filming in the closing days of COP29 in Baku, Azerbaijan. And I'd just like to thank the International Society for Ecological Economics for badging the people of Climate Emergency Forum. And I would just like to point out that this is an area that's, the air is relatively good. It's only 1,000, well, it just jumped. It's 1381 parts per million is the CO2 level. I've been carrying this detector all for 2 weeks around the COP, and I've seen the numbers as high as almost 5,000 parts per million. And anything over about 12 or 1,400 decreases cognition. There's measurable studies on this. So ironically, we're trying to negotiate how to reduce CO2, and reduce global temperatures, and we're doing it in an environment where CO2 is so high, our cognition and decision making is impaired.
Well, let me add a point quickly. CNN put out a report that only 13 countries in the world had clean air or acceptable levels of clean air. Grenada is one of them. Yep, but even though we live in paradise, we know that paradise too is being affected. So it is regardless whether you're in the best of situations or in the worst of situations. We all have to get together and make it happen. Let's change the planet together, guys.
Yes, and thanks again, all the viewers of Climate Emergency Forum, and bye for now.